topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the host and their guests, and not those of W4CS Radio, its employees, or affiliates. W4CS makes no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening to the Cancer Support Network on W4CS.com.
Hello, hello. Another pause moment. Aarti, good to have you back as usual, but she is traveling, so things can be somewhat suspect in that moment. But at the same time, she's able to pause. So what's up, girl? How are you?
Good, how are you? Sorry for the lag, everyone.
No, you know what? It's so funny. We were just talking before we came on how it's somewhat like the old school, was it Japanese or Asian movies that the mouth was a little bit offset from the voice. So welcome to our Asian connection. No, I'm just kidding. All in all. No, but thank you all for joining us again for another week, for you to honestly just take a pause. I know for me today, it's one of those days where I really need a pause. As we're talking, I was just telling Aarti, I'm waiting for the COVID test to come back because I'm feeling kind of ooky. And there's a lot going around out there nowadays. And I don't know about your girls, Aarti, but by any chance, are you having the mask at school, or are you kind of letting them play it by ear, or what are you doing with that aspect of things? Or how do you feel about it?
I did encourage both of them to wear their masks, but then when I went in, they had a class party on Monday. And when I went in, my younger daughter, Zuri, had hers off, and I think it was to kind of fit into the class because she actually is one who would totally wear it, but nobody else was wearing it, but they had a bunch of kids absent. So I think it's hard for kids to feel like, just like I was odd man out going into the office yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's really uncomfortable when you're kind of the only one.
Exactly. So I feel like that has been something that I've been struggling with too, because knowing that I have an autoimmune disease, they come without masks, they could come home with stuff, you know? So I've been trying to balance it and also want them to have a life. So I know there's other parents out there that are struggling with that balance as well. Aliana was asking me, because I just on Monday got her booster and additionally a flu shot, which God help us, we all made it through. We're still standing. But at the same time, her stance right after was, I'm going to school and I don't have to wear a mask, you know? And so we had this back and forth for the week. We've had the back and forth with, do I have to, you know? And so me being sick right now as of this morning really opened her eyes to what it's all really about. So I think that, you know, we keep pushing the mindfulness aspect of things, but over time we tend to lose some of the motivation, you know what I mean? Or additionally recognizing the need. And a lot of us tend to be these reactive instead of the proactive because we've lived in a society that functions as such. So I don't know, definitely taking your house into your own hands and really, you know, getting your children, your family members to really understand the scope of what we're dealing with is really key. And I know we're how many years later and we're still saying this, but at the same time, I think we all get a little lax, you know what I mean? Additionally, when we're talking about, you know, letting go, you know what I mean? It's we definitely can let go a little too early on certain areas. So,
well, especially with this latest variant, because I'm sure you like, you know, it is. I know we've said this about in general, every time a new variant comes around, but this one is a little bit presenting with pneumonia, sometimes silent symptoms, and then we're having a lot of things happen. And I know that we often get tired of the whole wearing masks or the conversation, but I always say, can we go back and trace our roots to China, where they've been dealing with SARS for forever?
Ever.
You're so used to mask, no mask, when to put it on, when not to.
Right.
Right. Kind of built a preventative, but they're even facing. Look at their numbers. I mean,
and the thing is, I feel like I wanted to make references to, too, is that the Asian community dealing with SARS as long as they have, and them taking the precautions to properly layer themselves, or additionally, when we're talking about masking for years prior to us doing so, it's one of those situations where we really have to recognize that we have also created this, look at this stereotype that has made it that it's a negative thing to be wearing the mask and gargling as such. So I think, there's a lot of pulling back off of some of the old school stereotypical perspectives in reference to why other cultures are functioning certain ways, or additionally have different ways of basically walking day to day, and it's due to their environment, and we've been talking about, in this coming year, we'll be talking about wellness, and environmental wellness is huge, in reference to that sanity aspect of things. So I just had to throw that in there real quick, but definitely to get into what we are here for today, I wanted to kind of bring you guys in on something that, and it's bringing him into something that's honestly been within me for some time. I think when you get married and you choose an individual to walk this walk with, you hope that all aspects could be walk together, and there are some of the journey that is yours and personally your own journey, as opposed to your partner's journey. And so I have over time been learning how to let go of kind of keeping him somewhat on the outs of what I'm dealing with. And then also not just what I'm dealing with, but then to connect him to my aspirations, to see if this helpmate can help me in a lot of what has become things that are difficult for me now, that weren't difficult for me before. And I think there's these vows that we take, to death do we part, and sickness and health, and blah, blah, blah. And we really don't absorb what any of those really mean until you're smacked in the face with it. There's a situation that comes to the forefront that smacks you in the face, and you're like, golly, And so I have to be honest with you in reference to dealing with my disease. I have not wanted my family across the board to be burdened with it. So I go to my appointments on my own. He'll try to come or whatever. The kids might want to come or whatever. But a lot of it, I have kind of kept it as my own personal journey. But as I am getting older, if I can at least put it there, right? But as I'm getting older, in tandem, am I finding that I need to rest on what God has given me, and so I just wanted to introduce to you guys once again, which you've seen him probably on our cipher once a month, but at the same time, I would like you to be blessed with the voice of my husband, John Kevin Fernandez. Granted, he is got his own businesses as well, and additionally, he's got a lot of ministry within, and so I feel like not just is he my husband, right, and loquacious, but at the same time, he has a work, and a message that I know, if I haven't said it, I know I have been blessed with some of the things that have come out his mouth. But at the same time, I've seen a community of people also touched. So Arti, just so you know, and I think you already knew, but John is what we call at the funeral home our house dressing. And so at the end of the day, my dad is, like a lead pastor over what we call Legacy Ministries. And John is now additionally an associate pastor. And they're both of them are that special sauce, per se, that comes with the services that we provide at Floyd Williams Funeral Home. So welcome. I'm glad I could be very long-winded like you told me not to.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Arti. Always a pleasure to see you.
You too. Sorry, I'm on some delay. We were just talking about the delay, but yeah.
That's all right. I grew up watching Shaw Brothers, old school kung fu flicks, so I'm used to it.
Oh, nice. You get it.
Yeah, I get it.
This is it.
I might even join you sometime. So it's a pleasure to be here once again with you guys and talking about letting it go. Couple things. Daria introduced me as the house dressing, and I actually like that title. I think I may have come up with it actually.
We know.
And the thought process behind it was, when you go out to your favorite restaurant and you ask for a salad with your meal, they say, what kind of dressing would you want? You say, oh, what are the choices? They'll tell you there's balsamic vinaigrette, there's Italian, there's creamy this and blanch that, or we have house dressing. I always pick the house dressing because it's usually the best tasting one on the menu. And you can ensure that it's mainly vinegar, oil, and the seasonings that you want that will complement all of the different vegetables and stuff, produce that are in your salad. So on that note, I am the house dressing. So you're guaranteed to get a little bit of vinegar, a little bit of salt, and some seasoning all at the same time. That is me.
And you'll find sugar in there, and you probably didn't think you were coming for that, but you get some sugar as well in that.
Yeah, you'll get a little bit of sugar. And so that is me. And I also wanted to let you know that I heard you, Daria, when you said you wanted to see if what God gave you will work into what it is that you have going outside of our individual things. And so to classify me as the gift from God to you, I say thank you very much. And that might not have been what you meant, but that's what I'm putting it as.
I totally meant it. It's just I just want you to, and everybody on the other side.
I caught it.
Nice.
So yeah, today we're talking about letting it go or letting go. And so when I was asked to do this, I said sure, no problem. I think this will be a good one to discuss and talk about, and some good information could come up and we could share it. And then I listened to a lot of talk radio, and there was this story that someone shared on talk radio, and it was on Sirius XM on what is this station?
The
Urban View, 126 on Sirius XM. And the story, it's a African folklore, and it's called The Eagles Who Thought They Were Chickens. And the synopsis of the story is the eagles who thought they were chickens chronicles the journey of a great eagle who was historically perched at the right hand of the great king. in their native Africa. And the king was captured, and alongside the king was also the eagle was also captured. And when the captors came and took them from Africa, they sailed them across this great um, body of water to this new land. And they put the eagle, because they weren't familiar with an eagle, so they clipped the eagle's wings and put it in the chicken coop. And they enslaved the king. And they kept making this journey. Those captors kept making this journey back and forth. And every time they went there, they would capture more people, and they would capture these funny looking chicken, but they were actually eagles. And so the eagles made the journey, came across, and wings were clipped, and they were put in a chicken coop. And so they grew up as chicken. In this foreign land, they did not know their history. They did not know anything about themselves other than the fact that now they were next to these chickens in this chicken coop. And the chickens noticed the difference between how they looked in these other foreign chickens. So the homegrown chickens would abuse the foreign chickens. They would mistreat them. They would beat them up. They would tell them how ugly they were. They would tell them how dumb they were. But there was this one eagle, wings clipped and all, and he continued to tell the chickens, "I'm not a chicken. I'm an eagle. I'm not one of you dumb little chickens. I'm an eagle. I know who I am." So the chickens, the chicken coop obviously was overseen by the roosters. And so the word got back to the roosters that there's this new chicken in here making this fuss. You all need to go handle it. So the roosters went, they talked to the eagle. They told him, "Listen, you dumb little ugly chicken, you need to be quiet and stop making all this fuss. You're creating problems in our community." The eagle said, "I'm not a chicken. You all are stupid. I'm an eagle." They beat him up. They battered him. They pecked at him. They ripped out his feathers. And he just laid on the ground in the chicken yard. And he just laid there day after day while all this life is going on around him. Just discouraged, just beaten down. But he still never forgot that he was an eagle. And then one day, when the chickens came to see where the beat up chicken was, he was no longer laying down there. And they looked around and they couldn't find him. And then they saw him perched up on top of the fence. And they started yelling at him, "You need to come down there. Come down from here. You know chickens can't fly. You're going to get us all in trouble. Get down there before the roosters come." He said, "I'm not a chicken. I told you all I was an eagle." So the roosters came and they looked at him and they told him, they said, "Listen, you need to come down there. You're not supposed to be up here. Get down here with the rest of the chickens." So what he did was he flapped his wings, because the new wings, the clipped wings have grown back and they healed. So he flapped his wings and the wingspan put shade over the whole chicken coop, and he flew up into the sky, into the heavens, into the clouds. And he circled back around and he started telling all of the other eagles, "You all are not chickens. You all are eagles. Spread your wings, flap your wings, fly. This is who we are. We are majestic. We are kings. We are warriors of the sky and the clouds. We come from a great kingdom. We do all of these things. We need you to spread your wings." All of the eagles started spreading their wings with the exception of one. And he looked up to him and he said, "I don't know what you all are doing, but I'm a chicken, and chickens can't fly. I'm not going to attempt to flap my wings. I'm just going to stay here in this position and do what I know I'm supposed to do, so I do not have or create any problems or issues." And so the eagles took off and left that one eagle there. The moral of the story is, if you don't know who you are and what you're capable of, then anyone can tell you anything. And you'll be stuck in that same position, waiting and waiting to die when you could have lived. And so when I heard that story, I said, that right there for me is a prime example of getting to a place where you just got to let it go. And so I wanted to share that before going into letting it go. Um, because there's a lot of books and a lot of studies and scientific research and psychological research um, about letting it go. There's this one book called The Mechanism of Surrender. I forget the author's name, but it's a study of the power of letting it go. And so when we look at what does letting it go actually mean, you have to go before that and talk about life before letting it go, because there's things that in order to let something go you have to have it. And so what are those things that I have to have? There's disappointment, there's depression, there's loss, whether it's a loss of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of a relationship, loss of a dream, even. Then you have all of the negative feelings that come with all of the different disappointments and discouragements and loss that we experience. And so all of those emotions, we can classify them as negative emotions. So there's negative emotions and there's positive emotions. Negative emotions, we can say, is pressure. And we all know that pressure um, is negative. If you are sitting somewhere and someone comes and applies pressure to your shoulder, it's going to hurt. Hurt is negative. So pressure, we can say pressure is negative. And so when you have all of these negative emotions applying pressure to you, whether it's physically, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, it's all negative. And so when we are dealing with these different events in our lives that drum up negative emotions, then those negative emotions have negative impacts on our entire being. It's a holistic um, negative impact from the internal to the external, and it shows from the internal to the external. Some of the scientific research that they have done has shown that um, negative feelings group together in our mentality. So if there's something that creates a negative feeling, it a negative emotion, it attaches to the rest of the negative emotions in our subconscious and consciousness. And so anytime something negative happens that is reminiscent of something that was negative from years ago, it finds that matching emotion and it pairs with it. So now it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled, and the feeling that we have um, has a greater negative impact on us mentally, emotionally, and physically. And
John, can
so,
I?
yes, ma'am. I,
I'm
I'm the
sorry.
only
No,
one
I
on the
just wanted
screen.
to. No, that's okay. You can stay. No, I'm just kidding. No, but I just wanted to add to that because, as we're living in the same house, we're still doing our separate research on things as we're discussing topics. And I found this quote that says, left me broken, betrayed, and full of anger and regret. New emotions for me. It has only left me with a choice. Would I allow this person or situation, this one moment in time, to become the lens through which I observe life and love? Would I opt to live in a body and mind drowning in a cesspool of depressive emotions? Or would I choose to let go of the hurt and move on to love again? And so I just wanted to add that in, because right where you're at right now is just like you're talking about, like a person going through and feeling all these questions and things kind of running through their brains. And then it's what lens they're looking through, which emotional lens they're looking through, which can sometimes determine what we do or how we act or function from there. So I just wanted to add that in. I apologize for interrupting because you were on.
No apology. That was perfect. That was absolutely perfect, because there's three areas. In my reading of the mechanism to surrender, there were three main areas in our consciousness, basically, that lend to us holding on to all of these negative instances that create negative emotion. And those three areas are known as repression, suppression, and escapism. And now repression is more unconscious. And what it is we repress things that have happened to us that gave us that negative emotion or that negative feeling, that bad feeling, that feeling of despair, the feeling of no one loves me, the feeling of I just can't, people just won't. And so we unconsciously remove those instances from our memory banks. We remove them from our conscious thinking, and we place them in our subconscious thinking. And we do that.
Like I might have done that. Not to act like I might have done that, but I lost the third one. Repression, depression, and
it's repression, suppression, and escapism. Yes.
I got you.
And so we repress those instances because we don't want to think about them anymore, because those instances create painful thoughts for us. And even though we're repressing it and we think, I'm not going to think about this no more, we did not eliminate it. That situation is still there. That incident is still there. And because we haven't dealt with it, it's going to subconsciously come up again. It's going to resurface. It's like doing yard work. You cut the lawn, and I love doing yard work. So if I'm in the summertime, you get those little yellow dandelions that pop up, and if you want that green carpet of a yard to look like a football field or a baseball stadium, and then you see those yellow flowers, dandelions popping up, you want to go out and mow the lawn immediately to get rid of them. And that's what you do, but you didn't get rid of them. What you did was you repressed them, because the root of the problem is still in the ground. And after some time, that dandelion is going to resurface again. And that's what repression is like. And then there's suppression, which is the conscious act of repression. So we repress unconsciously because it's so painful. We're trying to remove it unconsciously. What we're doing is pushing it back. But suppression, we're consciously taking that event and throwing it into the depths of our minds, hoping that we'll never think about it again, that we'll go to the grave with it, that it'll never surface, that it's in the darkest parts of our brain. But what we soon find out is what is done in the dark comes to light. And so, even though we try to suppress it, it's still going to be there. We're still going to deal with it.
And John,
yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I'm in the background. I didn't mean to interrupt you. And I'm sure, like, the first thing that when we think of suppression is typically is grief.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely. And the thing about that, and I was just talking to Daria about it, is that one of the things that I tell people when I'm family members and individuals, when I'm talking to them, in relation to grief and loss and death is that I believe the worst, one of the worst, if not the worst, comments that someone could say to someone that's dealing with loss, and it's done from a place of innocence and a place of ignorance. And I say ignorance because they don't know, not because they're disrespectfully ignorant. But it's from a place of innocent. It's an innocent comment, and it's done from a place of they really don't know what else to say. But I believe one of the worst, if not the worst, things to say to someone that's dealing with loss is, "It's going to get better. Things will get better." And my response to that, and the reason I say that is, when I buried my dad, people were coming up to me telling me it's going to get better. And my response to them, because I'm fast and I'm quick with it, and sometimes it's a blessing, other times it can be a curse. My response to them automatically was, how do you propose things are going to get better when I just buried my father? How do you propose things are going to get better when there's a permanent hole in my heart because my dad is no longer here? How are things going to get better? And that response that I gave was a response out of pain, but it was also a response of truth. And so now when I respond to people with that, or when I'm talking to people, I'm giving them a more gentler, kinder way to respond to people when they give them that innocent comment because they don't know what else to say. And so that's just what traditionally people say, things will get better. It'll be okay. Things don't get better. What happens, and this is where escapism comes into play. Escapism comes into play when you try to physically remove yourself from the situation so that you don't have to deal with it. And so, I'm sorry, that's my daughter calling. That's considered to be natural noise, like a dog bark. That's just my daughter calling, probably wanting to know who's picking her up from school, because they have a half a day. But escapism is you're trying to physically remove yourself from a situation, because the situation does not feel good to you, because the situation leaves you with the negative emotions. It leaves you feeling worse than when you entered into the situation. So you escape it, or you try to. And so, doubling back to the comment about things will get better, I tell people things may not get better. I don't know if they will, and I don't know if they won't. So I say things may not get better, but one thing I can guarantee is that things will become more bearable as more time is placed between you and that incident. That doesn't necessarily mean things are going to get better, but it becomes more bearable. But during that time of distance creating, you still have to do some work.
Absolutely.
You have to do some emotional work. You have to do some mental work. You may even have to do some physical work depending on what the instance or situation or circumstance was. But you still have to do some work to make sure that things become more bearable. Now, when talking with families about death, when I mention me burying my dad, that situation was 22 years ago. I still deal with it today, but it's more bearable. There's things that were going on in me and my father's relationship, and this is where letting it go comes into play, that I realized in order for me to get better, not the situation, because my father's death is still my father's death. that loss is still a loss that I experience. It's a loss that I still live every day that my eyes open up. But I had to let some of the situations that were in my relationship with my dad, I had to come to terms and let those things go, because the longer I held on to them, they blocked my growth.
Mm-hmm.
They blocked my physical growth. They blocked my mental growth. They blocked my spiritual growth. How did that block your physical growth? Well, here's how it blocks your physical growth. Negative emotions and negative feelings go straight to your autonomic system. And for those that don't know, the autonomic system is basically your central nervous system. That's all your nerves. So there's 3 different areas in that autonomic system. There's the PNS, the help me out, Daria, the ENS, and I believe it's the SNS, right? And those are your come on,
Did you say you say autonomic nervous system?
yes. And you have
So you're looking at sympathetic, parasympathetic, and then additionally the starts with an E.
the anatomic. I believe it's autonomic system.
Autonomic.
Yeah, autonomic is the whole thing, yes. And so how does that affect your physicality, your physicalness? Well, your nervous system controls all of your involuntary actions. Your breathing, your heart rate, your blood pressure, your digestive system, everything that helps you grow, that you need to stay alive, is affected and impacted by the negative feelings and emotions that we harbor and hold on to because we don't know how to let go. And so practicing letting go has been scientifically proven to help a person's general overall health and well-being, because they say that when yes ma'am, I saw your mouth fixing to say something.
Well, what I was saying is I wanted to understand, so when you're trying to make this mental shift, how do you know whether you're repressing, suppressing, or in the escapism aspects of things?
Your connection is a little choppy right now, so I'm not hearing the full question, and we're in the same house.
I heard Daria say, and Daria, correct me if I'm wrong. I think she's asking, how do you know when you're in the use of suppression, repression, right, or escapism? Daria, is that what I heard?
Exactly. Correct.
So I believe, and I'm not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a doctor, a MDiv, or none of that stuff. But what I believe is that all of them, suppression, repression, and escapism, are all negative. And so whether you're in repression or suppression, because suppression and repression are almost the same, but one is unconscious and one is unconscious and one is conscious. And so suppression, again, is the conscious act of repression. Suppression is the conscious act of repression. So they're one and the same. It's just that you're consciously doing one. You're purposefully doing one, and the other one you're doing as a way to try to protect yourself.
And John, I always say, oh, sorry, I know there's a lag today. I always say the ones that we can control, right? Repress, especially with repressed memories or trauma or things that we can't always have control. But like suppression and escapism are definitely in our realm of control when we are paying attention to our behavior patterns.
Absolutely.
Right.
And yeah, go ahead, Daria. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you go. I can talk too much.
No, I was thinking about what John was talking about with, John, with your dad, and before that, you were talking about how some of the comments that people can make at that grief cycle, and it does cause a lot of suppression. And I use my own example. When my dad passed, I was 12, and I still remember at the outside of the funeral home when I don't remember who it was, but they said they're operating out of their way of comfort, but they said not to cry. And so that suppression of holding things in for a number of years in those teenagers really did cause a lot of suppression that turned into repression, that turned into a lot of work that I had to do. And it wasn't easy, and it caused a lot of issues. So I'm really glad you mentioned how the power of words, on how that plays a role, and then how you learn to let go is when you are made to feel like your grief is valid and of value, is where that comes through, I feel.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And
I think so. Oh, I'm sorry.
And it's work. It's not easy. It's easier said than done. Letting go. Just let it go. People say it all the time. Let go and let God. What does that mean? Let go and let God. Like, let go and let God. I'm still trying to figure out if God is real. Totally. This is what people say. So how am I supposed to let go and let someone that I want to believe is real handle something that I'm gonna have to deal with tomorrow if it's not taken care of today? Let go. Let go. How do you do that? What does that look like? What does it mean? And so I think it's obviously different for everyone else. It's different for everyone. Like, everyone's process is different. The principle is the same, but the process is different. Totally. And so for me, you're gonna say something, Ms. Daria Williams Fernandez? I saw that.
Well, no, but I was just thinking, and maybe it's not even an additional aspect of things, but I'm just thinking about the people that maybe like myself, where I've been on this journey of trying to work through some of the things that God has placed on my plate, and when we're talking about that repression area, I really struggled because there was this program called Landmark that you can get into, and it's supposed to be like bring you into the possibilities, and it hit on some of this letting go aspect of things. But when you're dealing with a chronic illness, it's one of those things where that thing isn't going away. Just like when we're talking about the passing of someone is not going away. So there's aspects of that will reside in a repression area, right? But then it's these pause moments that we're wanting to bring them to the forefront and try to take that time to work through the different emotions that each one of our situations kind of bring on, and then additionally thinking out what will our reaction be, because it was good to see that in the group somebody would have a relationship issue and then they'd have some dialogue and there was some peace there, but I kept getting back to I can't get to that, right? So I think the distinction between the different categories is very helpful for us as we're trying to process really what's going on in itself. So I apologize. You can continue on. We have nothing left, so close this out.
How much time do we have left on the podcast? I'm just because I can go forever.
Well, I know this is such a hot topic. Oh my goodness, it is a hot topic. We have 3 minutes left.
We have to. Okay, so then I just want to read something from the Holy Grail of animation from Disney, from the book of Frozen, chapter Let It Go, verses 1 through 25. and it goes like this. The snow glows white on the mountain tonight, not a footprint to be seen. A kingdom of isolation, and it looks like I'm the queen. The wind is howling like the swirling storm inside. Couldn't keep it in. Heaven knows I tried. Don't let them in. Don't let them see. Be the good girl you always have to be. Conceal. Don't feel. Don't let them know. Well, now they know. Let it go. Let it go. Can't hold back anymore. Let it go. Let it go. Turn away and slam the door. I don't care what they're going to say. Let the storm rage on. The cold never bothered me anyway. It's funny how some distance makes everything seem small. And the fears that once controlled me can't get me at all. It's time to see what I can do to test the limits and break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. Let it go. Let it go. I am one with the wind and sky. Let it go. Let it go. You'll never see me cry. Here I stand. Here I stay. Let the storm rage on. My power flurries through the air into the ground. My soul is spiraling in frozen fractals all around. And one thought crystallizes like an icy blast. I'm never going back. The past is in the past. Let it go. Let it go.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. What a way to
Talk about
bring it all together.
now I can, yeah, that's like the rebirth of that movie, because now I can accept it differently, because it was getting a little bit rough over and over, but then to get into the words of it and really hear what they're saying to our children, you know,
Yes.
and that, you know, there's a lot to be needing to be picked up from what life is going to keep rolling out things on us, you know, and we've got to figure out what we can control and what we can't control. And I think, John, I greatly appreciate you coming on the platform today and giving us your 2 cents per se, right, in reference to how you see this perspective of letting go. John has always been the optimistic individual in the relationship, where I tend to try to find this in between balance. And so it's always good to hear his perspective, his connection. And so I thank him for joining us today. And I thank all of you guys as well for joining us on this platform and taking a moment out of your busy day, especially on a Friday before Christmas or your holiday celebrations. We greatly thank you for joining us and getting honestly into you. And there goes the Baptist finger. Yes, John.
Before we close out, one last thing. One last thing.
Mm-hmm.
Letting it go. And this was my final mental note. And I didn't want to leave without saying it. And it just came back to me. That's why the finger went up. Learning how to let things go increases your capacity to be loved. Not to be loved, not to be loved, but to be loved. And that is for your community, your initial community at home, and your greater community abroad. When you learn to let go, you improve and increase your capacity to become love.
Exactly. Drop the mic.
Thank you so much. Oh, it's time, y'all. Okay, happy holidays to everyone.
Take care. Blessings.
Thank you.
Take care.
Yes, we'll see you come the new year. Hop on our Kwanzaa if you can. Register. Greatly appreciate it if you show up. We go through the principles, and we'll see you next year. Blessings.